I want to talk about the various things I enjoy. Now, I can in no way offer an educated or well-written opinion about anything I'm about to discuss, but what I can present to you is my own personal take, something new to the table of conversations. It's fun to join in the talk and solidify yourself as part of the community, so without further ado, here are my thoughts on Spectre. Season 2, let's go! More and more I've been trying to cement the idea that I actually really enjoy fiction. Now, considering I haven't consumed a diverse range of fictional media such as books or movies, you might find this hard to believe. And I don't blame you, I would too. I haven't read or seen a single Harry Potter book or movie, I haven't watched Doctor Who, haven't played a single Fire Emblem game. Wait, these franchises have super secluded fan bases, this is fine. I haven't watched JoJo. Still. My point is, I guess I'm picky when it comes to the fiction I invest my time into. Or maybe I just have this thing called an opinion, and I'm talking about the wrong kind. Either way, if I can get into it, I'll really stick around that world for some time. There's just one problem. I just can't stop falling in love with horrendously mid-tier anime. There's your new weirdly long anime title. Anime is not very different from other fictitious works, other than the fact that it is made by Japanese people. Such is the case of mid-tier anime Spectre, whose English dub is, well,
cool.
Not amazing.
I won't forget this time.
Yeah, I'm so sure.
Combine that with the weird pacing and the strange way it presents its mystery elements, and some might even call it bad. But if this is all the case, if the Spectre anime is truly so mid-tier, then the question of the matter is this: why the heck do I love it so much? Well, today, by giving you my thoughts on it, perhaps I can explain to both you and myself the reasons. I have a pretty good track record of liking mid-tier anime, so I figure it wouldn't hurt to go a little more in-depth into the enigmatic parts of my interests. Spectre, probably the last of its kind in anime title length, first aired in early 2020 and is an adaptation of the manga by the same name, produced May 9th, 2011. Don't ask me why I know that. Oh yeah, spoiler warnings, I guess? It doesn't make much sense for you to be watching a video about Spectre if you haven't seen it yet, but regardless, I'm going pretty in-depth later in this video. If you just want my synopsis before you watch it, then stop the video at this timestamp and get on Crunchyroll. Spectre follows the story of Kotoko Iwanaga, a young woman who was kidnapped by a yokai when she was 11. Yokai, if you don't know, are mythological Japanese spirits and creatures, a very interesting topic in their own respect. Such is the Spectre half of the title. Anyway, the yokai in Spectre are simple creatures, and ask Kotoko to become their goddess of wisdom, to which she obliges, becoming this goddess of wisdom in exchange for her right eye and left leg. Flash forward, and now she's solving the mysteries of the unseen supernatural with a boyfriend named Mamoru Miyano, which she stole from a cop. Yosh, I think that's a good summary. Also, yeah, this is a mystery anime. Now you know where the Spectre half of the title comes from. Eh? I gotta say, it makes a lot more sense when you say it out loud. I also gotta say, right off the bat, for a goddess of wisdom, she acts rather average intelligence at times. I don't know about you, but I'm not so sure petty little arguments and sweating the small stuff are very befitting of a so-called goddess of wisdom. This is made particularly obvious when dealing with the cold behavior Kuro gives her whenever they so much as exist in the same location together. If it isn't obvious by now, Kuro's not completely on board with the arrangement, especially since he's just broken up with his ex. Would you be? Don't answer that. But I suppose that's the charm of anime, as is consistent with a couple of anime I've watched before. When it comes to interactions between characters in anime, the characters' actions often don't make much sense, and even more often go unexplained. To not immediately reveal every dimension of a character's thoughts is the key to good storytelling, I guess. The progression of Spectre is a little weird. After the introductory first episode, we're met with Kotoko's first case, you could say, which is a discussion with a giant snake yokai about the reason a woman might perhaps offload a corpse into its swamp. Because that happened. It's a short little episode and a half, and it demonstrates the way Kotoko responds to problems and will respond for the rest of the series. It's about this point the lot of us who actually watched this were intrigued to see where this would go. As I clicked on episode 4, I couldn't wait to see what exciting adventures the goddess of wisdom and her loyal servant Existential Pain were going to venture on. 1. Ichi. A singular arc happens after this. It's the rest of the season long and that's it. Now can you sorta see why Season 2's a big deal? I must admit, not having watched a lot of anime, I don't think I get to complain about the weird progression here. Personally, it doesn't bother me too much. Maybe the writers needed 11 episodes for the second arc, but that is a little weird. The overall pacing we've seen so far doesn't seem ideal if Spectre is to become a decently long-running series, which, let's be honest, is probably the case. Considering the addition of a second season, whoever's producing this anime clearly wants it to go places. I'm on board with all that, don't get me wrong, but Season 2 needs to cement some consistency in arc length if it's gonna do that. As janky as the plot is, it's relatively interesting and it kept me watching. I can't turn down an opportunity like this to learn a little bit more about Japanese mythology. And Kotoko? What an eccentric character. Love her. Her various expressions are entirely the selling point of this anime.
Her face will be priceless.
If we were talking which anime characters were carrying their whole series, she would be one of them. Probably because that's her entire role in this. It's painfully clear from her design, backstory, and personality that she's made to be incredibly set apart from the rest of the cast. She's the one who comes up with the solutions, ties everything together, talks the most in the entire show. I guess she's the goddess of wisdom, but come on, that's no reason to basically wedge yourself into the lives of a normal-ass woman and her existentially suffering boyfriend whose name starts with a K and ends in Uro. That's right, folks, I'm talking about immortality. The more I think about it, the more this story simply looks like a foreign girl intruding on the lives of, for the most part, normal Japanese people. And that, to me, is hilarious. And don't worry, I know what you're thinking. If she's so great, if this Kotoko girl is such a special little snowflake, if she's such a smart cookie, then what sort of mysteries, exactly, is Kotoko inspecting and or solving? And just how is the way she solves them inherently strange compared to the way it's done in conventional mystery genre anime and media? And don't tell me that wasn't word for word what you were thinking. I was thinking it too when I started this ride. So now we're gonna dive into the mind of Kotoko Iwanaga. Carefully dissect the way she dissects her facts and forms her own theories, and inspect exactly that. I am not sorry! Episodes 3 to 12 focus on Kotoko's study, combat, and defeat of Steel Lady Nanase, a monster created by unconventional means. There's a bit you have to understand about how Steel Lady Nanase comes to exist in the world of Spectre, so I'll explain that a little as we go. It's also important to note that my explanation of things game is very certainly lacking, so please bear with. Thank you. Steel Lady Nanase is the ghost of Nanase Karin, an idol who died a death shrouded in mystery. Is what the story presents to you at first. Then Kotoko steps in and does her investigative work, and we learn that Steel Lady Nanase is actually more than that. She's something called a monster of the imagination, which is brought into reality if enough people believe in it and can attach a name and face to the monster. Put on paper, I am beginning to realize just how far out the premise is, but I can only say that is simply how it works here. Monsters of the imagination are different from your average yokai. In the case of Steel Lady Nanase, she has no emotions or desires, but she does unfortunately have violent tendencies. Kotoko, prior to her deductions, describes Steel Lady Nanase as a hollow puppet, implying an external force is responsible for her. As the series progresses, both the viewer and Kotoko learn more about the nature of Steel Lady Nanase and how she became so powerful in such a short time span. But we as frequent users of the internet already know the secret to a successful creepypasta: the internet itself. Kotoko herself mentions that the internet is fantastic at rapidly spreading information, and it just so happens that a fan forum site dedicated to Steel Lady Nanase is the source of her power. In short, the sight and image of Steel Lady Nanase spread across multiple people, causing her to manifest faster than most monsters of the imagination. Considering the threat she poses to the general public, Kotoko takes on the job of turning her prominence away from the minds of the people, thereby erasing her from existence. In order to do this, Kotoko takes to the wiki forums and de-escalates the popularity of Steel Lady Nanase, so that less people believe in it and thereby weaken its form. And in order to do this, there's a very specific process that Kotoko follows to ensure that her plan works. First, she gathers all viable information she can about Steel Lady Nanase. The existence of the Steel Lady Nanase wiki site, police documents from her trustworthy inside source Kuro's ex-girlfriend Saki, an unrelated third-party eyewitness account courtesy of a ghost who saw Nanase Karin the moment she died. With these pieces of information and the certainty of an accidental death, she then proceeds to not use that truth completely. See, the objective here is not to deduce the most likely cause of death, since we already know that. It's also not to disprove the fact that Steel Lady Nanase exists either, as the people would rather believe in her existence based on the collective accounts of those who actually encountered her. The objective is to use the facts to create a lie that is consistent with said facts and will appeal to the users of the site, turning their attention away from Steel Lady Nanase and diminishing the collective belief in her. Second, Kotoko spins her fiction. Kotoko comes up with 4 possible explanations for the appearance of Steel Lady Nanase, refuting any inconsistencies that may come up along the way. The first 3 aren't incredibly important to know the details about, but what you should take away from them is that when Kotoko forms an explanation, she gives her story and then resolves any lingering inconsistencies. All 3 provide elements of logic that Kotoko uses to form the basis for her 4th explanation. The possibility of Nanase Karin being alive, the faking of her death, the recovered body a mere lookalike, and a chance encounter with a detective. Kotoko suggests all of these as the reason people have been seeing the ghost of Nanase Karin throughout the city, and although we know this isn't the truth, it's very convincing to the other users of the site, which have already been presented with the consistencies of the other 3 explanations. These users discuss the final explanation and draw their own conclusions from it, fortifying the general belief of it over the existence of Steel Lady Nanase. Throw in a bit of plot-convenient ex-boyfriend future picking and this case is as good as closed. It'll probably make more sense if you watched it. Kotoko's affinity for creating rational fiction from facts is no secret, even throughout the entirety of Season 1. From the moment she meets Kuro, she is conceptualizing completely accurate theories about his own story from the little she learns by talking to him, and from the yokai that fear him. In the Guardian Serpent arc, she weaves an elaborate and appealing tale based on the account of the woman that dumped a corpse into the Serpent Swamp. Plot convenient as it may be, Kotoko's wisdom and ability to spin fiction is no joke, and is the underlying reason I think this anime interests me so much. I love fiction, logical deduction just as much, and so it would only make sense that I enjoy this series. You wanna know how I actually found this anime? The time was early 2020, before everything you know all too well went down. The location, my bedroom, in front of my crusty 8-year-old laptop. I still remember the exact thought that ran across my mind as I stumbled upon an Inspector promotional artwork in the Google Images results for what I'm pretty sure was a completely different anime that wasn't even related to Inspector. Well, that's not normal. Japan, I love you, but you know what? No, I'm not even gonna bother asking. I've learned to accept that we're just forever gonna be like this, moving swiftly on. The banter between Saki and Kotoko is funny sometimes. Other times it's like the writers are actually trying to imply the existence of a harem, which of course it really doesn't. If it isn't obvious by now, there is a substantial amount of things you do have to forgive when it comes to Inspector. When it comes to anime. Speaking from experience, writers will constantly throw any and all anime tropes they can fit into their anime, which does get tiring after some time. But it is tropes like these that let us know when we are in fact watching anime. If you can look past them, hats off to you. They really put a damper on my anime experience, lest they're executed in a unique or entertaining way. For example, I'm a huge fan of various characters from a slice of life anime called Tanaka-kun is Always Listless. Might have referenced it a few times on Yet to Be Confirmed. Maybe you've seen it. From Echizen's take on the delinquent character, to cute little Miyano's pursuit of maturity, to Tanaka-kun himself, a true man of action. These are fresh takes on some familiar tropes, and these are why I love Tanaka-kun is Always Listless. Maybe more than Inspector. Regardless, I'm still calling Inspector my top 3. Why that is, I very honestly couldn't tell you. So far, I don't think I've outlined very much that supports my interest in the franchise besides my personal interest in Japanese mythology and the writing of mysteries. So maybe it's a subjective thing. Oh yeah, we got a pretty good anime from this one. As a musically aligned individual, I personally like the leitmotifs of the Inspector original soundtrack a lot. The opening theme, Mononoke and the Fiction by Lion a Chameleon, is also very good, but, you know, how many times haven't we heard the generic J-Rock Anisun opening? The ending theme, however, damn can Kuro sing! A little known fact about Japan is that their jazz game is one of the tightest in the world. No one can belt it out like they do, and Last Dance, performed by Mamoru Miyano himself, is clear proof of that fact. Knowing full well that Crunchyroll absolutely will make me get premium to watch season 2 makes me just a little upset. Maybe I should just read the manga. Not that it would be an easy book series to find, but If it comes down to it, I'll be determined enough to find it. I think I know why I love Spectre. Of course, in tandem with the investment into the characters, and appreciation for the way they battle fiction with fiction, there's simply a unique charm Spectre brings to the table that turns around how both anime and the mystery genre are accepted to work. Perhaps anime can be more than tropes and high-energy action, and perhaps the mystery genre can be more than simple logical deduction. It could all be so much more, and I think, if you can look past its flaws, Spectre holds some keys to that. I love fiction. Moreover, I love the process of writing it, and to be able to watch an anime where the characters are fiction writing in the way that they do is probably one of my most favorite things in life. Also, yokai are cool too. Spectre no doubt has its moments. Good or bad, I can't really complain either way. I'm just gonna say that I'm all there for every single one of them.